But this was the moment where I realized, and I think many people realize, hey, this thing is actually real, right? We're here. It's not the five of us anymore. We have so much talent on Latin America that don't get exposed so much just because they are too afraid of learning the language and how they sound in English. I would push people to just learn the language. And if they're lucky and they commit to it, they can do it. With what happened with the internet over the years, I would say like the AI would be, I believe, different from what we know today. And somebody is just going to nail it in something that we don't even know that we need.
All right, we're live. Welcome to episode 2 of Agents of Change, presented by Appstream Studio. Today's guest is the one, the only, Cesar Bustamante. Cesar is a founding full-stack software engineer here at Appstream. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's quite a presentation introduction for me, so I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, let's jump right in. You are one of the first employees, founding, the title is founding, senior software engineer. You're one of the first hires myself and Lucas and Peter made. Thinking back, I guess, 3 years ago, your first week here, kind of what was a moment, if you can remember, that made you think, oh, hey, this place is different?
I mean, for me, it's about the culture and, working with people that does not have the same background as I do, right? It's not only the language, but it's the way that we work. And so I was super excited to work with people with tons of experience. I think the very first moment when we joined and everyone was just like brainstorming about how we should approach the company and the things that we should build, just made me realize, oh, okay, so I'm just, joined by a group of people that is very, very intelligent and very smart. So that was I think it's just like the first day, everything changed for me. So I would say that.
No, I love that. So you mentioned about your background, different backgrounds, and you looking for that in culture. Mind sharing a little bit about your background, your skills, how you got started in the industry, and kind of your career path that led you here?
Yeah, so I went to college in 2013. So it's, I'm from Peru. So in Peru, it's 5 years of college. So when I finished on 2018, I decided to find a job. I wasn't sure what, I would do because I knew that I could maybe have like little chance on programming. I wasn't that great at the moment, and I knew my very basics, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and jQuery. And so I was just trying to get my first gig. I landed a job in 2018, a month after I finished college. And it was just made of technical interviews. And at that time, we didn't have, AI, we didn't have anything. So we would basically just Google everything. And I thought, okay, maybe I need a crash course on how to get a form into a database, or, at least have the basic console log. So I did that. I used a lot of Stack Overflow, and I managed to pass my first interview. And that's how everything started, really. It was 2018. So it's now 7 years. And I've been working on basically the client applications. That's what I like the most. But yeah, since then, I had the chance to join a company that was in Peru, in my city, in Trujillo, but also had some folks abroad. So some folks in the US and some folks other parts of the world. So that was my very first experience with people that wasn't specifically on the same location. And I think that also gave me the opportunity to learn how to communicate, not only in English, because it's not my native language for sure, but just working with people that it's not on the same side, it's not on side with you. So that was, I would say, like, that's how everything started.
And I kind of know this because you and I have worked together for so many years now. Remind me, or tell the story how you actually learned English.
Yeah, so part of my life, I would say, outside family and everything, I would divide my life into maybe 3 main things, right? The first thing that I loved the most was soccer. Second thing I loved the most was the music. I got really into music. And in the middle, I discovered computers, I think, when I was 10. And so that was love at first sight, I would say. I was so, into the computers, and not only about, the specific things about the computers, but also knowing people online and playing games. I was really into RPG. And so back in the day, you would have to learn either Chinese or Japanese or English. And English was for me. So, people would curse at me because I was bad at some games, and I would have to understand that and, know how to reply. So that was my, take on it. Just because also on the music side, right? I would need to know the lyrics and all that. So I was reading some of the lyrics without knowing, exactly what it was. But when it was just, for playing games, I would have to know how to communicate. So that's how I basically did it. And then for sure, like when streaming got popular, then, that's also like second part where you could get like very nice dubbing and, with Netflix and all that. So I would say like partially music, partially TV shows, and partially, or a lot of part of it's video games. That's how I
I love
basically
that.
did it.
Man after my own heart. As a former competitive gamer and gamer myself, video games is the interweb that connects a lot of us. And to connect you to a community, or to connect you to people and friends whom I know you've met now in person, and
Yeah.
even taught you the language is incredible, right?
It also gives you, some slangs as well, which is very useful when, when you're communicating. There are some, like, for sure, corporate like words that we use day to day that I didn't even know, right? That this is something that you also learn with experience and working with people outside the country. There's also like common things that people say. You get the very basics, AFK and things like that. Uh, on my way. It's very, very interesting word. It was back in the day. I don't know how it is today, but, I think it is very useful to, I think, just find inspiration in what you love, and you'll basically learn from it. Everything that you can think of, or anything that you can think of, really. So that did it for me. But I know other stories that, work differently. So that's my story, at the very least.
No, absolutely. I love that. From college to video games to remote work, I guess through the pandemic was really probably a huge
Mhm.
catalyst, for you to working with me. We'd met previously and we worked on a project together, both as consultants, and that's kind of how you and I got to know each other. I'm curious, what was your first impression of me after working?
I mean, I had experiences with other PMs, and I think back in the day you were my PM. You would also, I've met you for so many years now, and you didn't have any kids, so it was very different, right?
That's right.
We got to talk till late, and first impression was great. I mean, I remember some time ago that you would record videos on how to recreate things, which is something that I never experienced, right? I would typically get just a basic ticket with, this happens, and you figure it out yourself. It was a very, very good first impression. And then I think we get to talk a lot, just speak with honesty and the things that I know, the things that I don't know, how the project is going. I basically, on that project, I was trying to help just to keep it live. So we would have to be really open about the things that we know that are not working, right? So I think for me, it was a very good impression, and, just transparency first. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's right. Cesar and I, a little bit about the project we met on. I guess it was almost 6 years ago now, 5 years ago. It's a scheduling application that is used by several hundred clinics in the Northeast United States, and actually sits on top of and makes some API requests via HL. This health systems EMR, they didn't like the out of the box scheduling application that came with the EMR, so we built a custom one. But Cesar joined the project, I think, several years into development, and I was like the last of the Mohicans. I think I was the last product manager consultant on the project. Everyone else on the Scrum team had turned over, and Cesar got the impossible task of coming in and helping me get the product across the finish line. And so there's many many late nights and many of panicked phone calls from the client. But even to this day, it's an awesome application. We still maintain it, we still work on it, and it schedules several 100,000 patient appointments every year. 99.9% uptime, 99.9% without a hitch. And it's an awesome product. I'm really proud of. I know you are. That's how we met, and then I think we both had that honest. Our relationship started from honesty, And I think at the time, Cesar was like a sub of a sub, some contracting shenanigans with a bunch of middlemen that just, take and provide actually no value in the value creation of the value chain. And I saw it happening. And I think in that point, I pitched to Cesar. I was like, hey, I think you're kind of getting the raw end of the deal here. Would you want to come work together, and we can cut out, two of these basically middlemen that just, steal from you. And the rest is history. And that evolved into kind of honestly the studio today, because you and I were working together, then me and Lucas and Peter working together, and we all kind of had the idea to start a product or a service company, and we wound up with the service company. But you were my first phone call. Like, hey, the three of us are thinking about doing this crazy thing. Are you in? Are you interested? We'd love to have you. And the rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a few things of it. I mean, I remember receiving late night messages just, asking if I knew this, and then it would be silent for a week. And then after a week, it would be, do you know this already? And I think in that project that we're mentioning, we were working with Angular, which I didn't quite, feel comfortable with. I remember this very specific message saying, do you know how to, do React and Next.js and those? And I said, well, I've worked with that. I love working with that. That's actually the one thing that I know, right? And till this day, I joke about what I know, right? Bartek, which is a colleague of ours, whenever he explains something really difficult to us, I say, explain it, easy way. I know Flexbox, and that's everything I know. So just make sure that I understand what you're saying. And to this day, we're working with those technologies. But I remember the very first message of you asking me, do you know React and do you know Next.js? And I was, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. If you think I'm good at Angular, then React would be better for me. And then everything evolved into, Appstream and the projects that we're doing today. So very glad that I knew the stack at the very least.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you were the first. I think we had our first project, and we needed a React, TypeScript, Next.js client. Senior client side engineer. I was like, I know the perfect guy. Let me just confirm, but I already got it. That was 3 years ago. So I'll teasing that out a little bit further. What made you say yes to that? Like, because it's kind of a crazy journey, right? You were at a pretty. I mean, I guess you had said yes to me, like working directly for me, and it was just like you and I, like a little 2-man agency. Then I propositioned you like, hey, I think we're going to do something a little bit bigger. It's going to be about 5 of us, and we're going to actually take a swing to make this a real company. What made you say yes? Because you had job security, you're safe, like you had hit a kind of home run, like U.S. rates and everything, living in a lower cost of living area, and you were like, yeah, I'm gonna roll the dice and roll with you again. I'm curious, like what made you crazy enough to roll the dice with me again?
I mean, you're for sure, a good seller. So you pitched to me, this is going to be an awesome project, and we don't know what it's going to be or what it's going to look like yet. But we're working with people that I know and are just exactly like you, hard workers, committed into everything. So that I would say that's the first point, right? Also, like with my experience, I enjoy working with you so much that I didn't even care too much about it. And I think, to be fair, I was the moment that asked me, I was, yeah, for sure, I'll do it, right? But I think that it's a little bit surprising because I didn't even think about it. I was sure that I wanted to do it, and my entire life, I would take a risk, just because some time ago, when that happened, I was younger. Also, I didn't have a bunch of responsibility.
Hmm.
I still don't have any kids, so I would. I think my entire life, I would think I need to renew what I know and what I do within reasonable, I guess. And so it was a good challenge. I didn't think it was work. I thought it was more of a fun project that we would be part together. And, if we ship something, that's fine. And I wasn't even committed for the money or anything. I was just like, okay, I get to learn and I get to create things. I like that. So that was it didn't need to convince me at all. I was into it the very moment that you asked me. So yeah, good seller. Plus I was really excited to create new things.
I love that. I appreciate the vote of confidence there. Is there like a holy, shit moment like on the during the last 3 years where you're like, wow, I think we're actually really onto something. Like this has kind of evolved from it was the three of us. Really even before that it was like me and you. And then it was the five of us. And then each year we've basically doubled or almost, yeah, we've like quadrupled, doubled, or quadrupled, tripled, doubled, and looking to double again next year. Um, is there a moment that you're like, wow, I think like we're like onto something? I think like the vision and the mission of what we set out to do together has been fulfilled, or is that still on the horizon?
I mean, I have few highlights. I would say my top one is for sure putting faces into the people, right? We for sure we see each other on camera, but then there's a moment where you say, "Hey, this person is actually tall," right? Because you don't know, you're sitting on the computer. So I would say like the very first moment where this year when we went to Poland, this is a moment that I think about frequently because since 2020 we've been remote basically, and we got to spend a whole week with the guys doing a little bit of work. To be honest, more of a talking week, I would say, and eating. But this was the moment where I realized, and I think many people realize, hey, this thing is actually real, right? We are here. It's not the five of us anymore. We had like 3, 4 new guys. That's one of my moments. And then when we, on Eventic, when we were getting the news that we were, assigning new clients pretty much every month, that would be just another thing that I don't know. Like I didn't know that this could happen. We were doing it for fun, and for sure, it was a good business opportunity. But there's always doubt, a little bit of doubt when you're building something that you don't know for sure if it's going to work or not. So that would be my two moments, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. That's really, really good. I echo the sentiment of like we did our company retreat in Warsaw, and we flew everyone from across the world in and spent a week together. We rented an office, did some work, mostly eating and hanging out, talking, just getting to know each other. But it is kind of I think I have some pictures on my phone. It was a very surreal moment for me too. Like, I think I was late one morning, some jet lag, and I slept in. And like I walked in, and there was 10 guys in this office that were all sitting there on working away, chatting, drinking coffee, hanging out, cross pair programming, working on client problems, like sharing knowledge. And I kind of just like opened the door and I stood in the threshold of the door and I was like, whoa, like I as a founder, the CEO, leader, it was like a really hit me right in the feels. It's like, wow, this is from idea to the first couple of guys to believe in me and the vision and the mission, to now that there's 10 of us, 11 of us in the room. Like, wow, that's a definitely a holy shit moment for me. Yeah, I immediately took pictures of it just so I could always have that that core memory.
Yeah, it would go to my, this is the things that you carry on your entire life, right? It's just a sentiment. It's different. You have to live it. The words cannot express what it feels. You just see this baby grow, I guess I would say.
That's it. That's it. Well, startups are labor of love, right? Startups are hard. Like building a company from 0 to 1 is hard. It can be it's peaks and valleys, right? And me as a leader, I try to stay very neutral, but the highs are high, the lows are low. The entrepreneur's journey is I think over glamorized, in the media and on X, but it's well worth it. But speaking of hard and building startups, oftentimes we build in chaos, right? Whether that's our own product or our own clients, right? Like every startup has chaos, right? I think the analogy I often hear is you're changing the oil while the race car is driving 100 miles an hour down the road, but you have to ship that one feature, you have to solve that one bug ticket, you have to pivot, or you have to add enhancement, but the implementations can't stop. I'm curious if you have any like chaos monkey moments inside building Appstream with me, and how did you personally like push through it, or is there anything top of mind where you're like, wow, I had no idea how I was going to solve that or was going to do that, but somehow we got through it and we're on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, very first moment, before Eventic, before the clients and everything happened, we were building what we call API wise. Use just you know uh, one of our very first ideas of what we wanted the company to be, and we were just like, I think we were committed into the project, but then we were in a phase that I personally had other things going on, with other work and in life. But we were building something that I wasn't sure, if it was going to make it. We were building basically this awesome application that would use AI to chat with endpoints, and I think the moment is just I was making the front end against two backend guys, and they would be so awesome that they would throw me APIs just so fast that I couldn't keep up with them. And they were, just sending me, "Hey, I just built this, I built this, I built that," and that was a moment of struggle for sure, right? Because we were so limited in resources. But I remember that with joy. We also, I think the last things that we did was around the authentication. So we would basically support the OAuth2 process and all that. So that was a moment where also we needed to do something different. It's just not the basic CRUD of reading, deleting. It's just like connecting everything so it's safe, and you get to test it with whether it's a basic auth or OAuth2 or very talking. That was something that I really enjoyed. It was chaotic, but I think at the end of the day, we managed to solve it, and it was awesome when it was working. So I would say
That's
that
right.
that was the very moment that I struggled a little bit, but then everything. It's just for me, the complexity of things just make it so interesting. So you get to just push yourself a little bit more, to learn new things. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And for anyone who might be listening, API Wise was our original product. As Cesar mentioned, it was, OpenAI had just kind of released, I think it was OpenAI GPT-3. And it was basically the idea of like our own frustration of integrating against, the third party APIs. We're like, hey, what if we could just use natural language to communicate with an endpoint or into an API, or like help us understand it, integrate it, implement it. And we, ultimately we pivoted after our alpha of that product. We pivoted it into Ivantic, and I think it was a good decision. But that's a whole other podcast episode for another day. So you mentioned like that was kind of chaotic moment for you, and but also growth. So I'm curious, has there been a project over the last 3 years that changed you most as like an engineer or as a leader or just as a human being? And obviously we can't talk about, client names or very project specific details, but high level, abstracted away, I'm curious if there's, either a client project or an open source project or something that, really sticks out to you that propelled you forward, that made you a better, better human, a better engineer, and a better future leader as you continue to grow and evolve in your career.
I mean, with any project, you get to learn more of the business side of things that you don't even know exist, right? And we're building things across the world and pretty much for different case scenarios, I would say. There's a project that till this day we were still on active development. At some point in time, we were just chatting against, and this happened in Warsaw, and nobody actually noticed how big this project was. And I remember that we were looking at the Swagger specification of the project, and there were 100 plus endpoints. And it's not only the backend, right? You also need to do the client side of the app. That made me realize, hey, we're building a project that it's not only good for the client, but it's also maintainable, and the developer experience is fine because everybody can just pretty much just take ownership of it, and they won't struggle so much. So I was really proud of what we built on that very specific project, because as a startup, one of the things that we figured out on our tech stack was just basically how we would communicate, between the back end and the front end. And these are kind of the contracts that you kind of like go along with. I feel like the first project was one thing, the second project was, another thing that was built on first project, like contracts and things that we decided, hey, we might do this better, we might stop doing this. And for this specific project, I would say like all of the things gathered together, and we got an awesome like developer experience, and also like good support, good project with good error tracking and so on. So I feel like in the within the company, we're building things not so much that would only work for a couple of months, but would last for x amount of years that the client would need. So I would say like we're constantly evolving, and that makes me feel proud of the team and the things that we're building, and also making me and pushing me to be better at coding and taking the right decisions. So yeah.
That's an awesome answer. It's a perfect segue, and kind of like my next question is, what's something today, or like a skill you have today, or something you can do today that 3 years ago you would be completely shocked by?
I think I can put a complete layout, with mocking data in probably a day, like the very basic layout, authorization, and all that. But it's not because I gained more experience, but also like the tooling and frameworks and things have evolved so much in these last 3 years that it's made the experience, the whole, I would say like client side experience just way better, right? You get to choose now what you like better. So just like mocking up, putting some wireframes is just so easy nowadays that I would be shocked, the amount of work that you can do today, due to different reasons, but mainly the community and, plus experience, like self experience. I would be shocked that, I don't know if it was your experience, but before 3 years ago, you'd say, hey, I need to, do the sidebar on a week, and then do the content next week and so on. It would be so slow. Now nobody would even dare to do that, because that it's so easy nowadays that you cannot complain so much about using the tailwind or whatever you're using for your CSS.
Yeah, that's true. The client side in particularly has evolved over the last 3 years, where it's whether it's component libraries, or I guess we always had component libraries, but the evolution of component libraries, packages, different CSS libs and the rest, and honestly, how far React has come, right? React's like taken over. It feels like most of front end development, and every kind of like everything is one package install away, right? It's the speed at which you can move now,
And
wild, and it's
deploy.
only yeah, and deploy. Yeah, that's fair. And deploy is it's wild to think about, and it's even changing even weekly now with generative AI and what people are referring to as vibe coding, right? You can now hook up MCP servers and pass in the official docs as a context to an LLM, and some of the models now are so good at speeding up your development, and have like really good developer experience, that what used to take 1 week is now 2 hours in an afternoon, right? And the rate at which we can ship, and and ultimately for us, the rate at which we can deliver value to our users or to our clients is it's unbelievable. Like, and it's not slowing down.
Same with the wireframes, right? You can now basically have few prompts to do a very, very basic wireframe and ship it, and you don't actually need to connect to anything. Just basically, there are some services that would give you a public URL, and then you can show this to the client and say, hey, you get a better feeling of what the application would be and how it would look, and how you can interact with this. Where in the past, for sure, you could do it like Figma. There were some like I think XD and some other tooling. But now I'm not saying that we don't need design, but I'm saying that if you're wireframing, it's so easy, and also like you can share with the client without caring too much whether they have access to Figma, or they know how to use Figma, and so on, right? So I would say, just for mocking up some applications and layouts, I would say that's for sure one thing that it's definitely evolved. And also just make you it's made me, at least at a very personal level, try to catch up with the different things that are changing today. So you could you get the good and bad, right, habits of it. But I believe if you're able to um, just realize what are the bad things about doing that, I think you should be fine. But yeah, for sure. I mean, I can mock up way faster today than 3 years ago.
Yeah, and that's it. You nailed it. So speaking of like, so where you were from today compared to 3 years ago, maybe you have a hot take looking forward. Like, let's look into your your magic crystal ball here. Where do you think we as a studio, where do you think Appstream is in the next 5 years, or where do you want to see it go?
I think for sure I like to have more own projects and own like services such as Authentic. Who knows with new technology and with new applications of it, or maybe just we have a an awesome idea that we can ship. I'd like to explore that. And I think the company will evolve in such a level that everyone will have possibly the help of agents and AI will also be more organized different areas. So I would say for sure we will be more mature and we'll be shipping a lot of value for our current projects. I would say so. I would say 5x at the very minimum.
Well, yeah, I love the sound of that. So also like future looking, what is a trend that gets you really excited for the future of software engineering? Or is there a technology like you're really paying a close attention to? You think will be a game changer for the future of of software development?
Um, I would say definitely the agents have changed a lot. I've seen crazy stuff such as I don't know if it was Bursa or BC or something like that. They basically use bots on X just to open pull requests, just to change something, and then they start use like commenting on the pull request, asking the agent to change something on kind of like live. Those things will be more common, I guess. Like definitely for sure now you have Copilot and some other tooling that reviews your pull requests that can capture things that maybe it's not even noticeable, such as typos, which are minor things, but at the end of the day, it just makes the product feel better and just more advanced, I would say, or stable. So that I think today people is just adopting it. Obviously, it's more expensive, so I would say like it's going to be cheaper in the future just because there will be more companies just taking over this. And I also believe that maybe this. I don't know if this is for sure, but it might be a hot take, but maybe we haven't even seen the biggest company in AI. Maybe it hasn't even you know, been created. With I believe you and I, and probably some of the folks that are listening to this, we've seen the internet grow so much, right? We've seen YouTube be basically nothing but just music. There weren't any other content, very basic content, to be honest. And we now use it for different reasons, like tutorials. I don't know, you name it. Um, and such as with what happened with the internet over the years, I would say like the AI would be, I believe, different from what we know today. And somebody is just going to nail it in something that we don't even know that we need, right? So, although I believe OpenAI is probably the biggest today, I believe there is going to be like a new company that takes over, and this is very natural, right? I'm not saying anything crazy, but I'm positive that there is going to be a lot of different applications for the AI. From the developer experience, um, I think we are moving on on a pace that is so fast that it's really difficult to keep up with. And the agents and different tooling that we get today will probably need to keep up. In the past, I would say when you were reading through documents and different things that you want to integrate in your application, it wouldn't be so common for you to ask the AI. And today it's just like a very common thing. So I would say more companies and different like projects and libraries will adopt this, and it's just going to be out of the box with it. Like if you were to ship an API, you would have this very basic website that already has AI so you can interact with the API, not in a transactional level, but just to ask, just get some feelings of how this documentation works and how you can integrate. So the things that we are noticing today will just be there for just out of the box, I would say. So I think and different applications on the day to day. we've had AI on the phones for years now. So who knows with which things will be part of our day. So I would say we haven't even seen what the AI can do for us as developers, as a company, but also as as humans.
Mm, well said. In kind of wrapping up here and in closing, what's something you've never said publicly about this journey that you've been on, but maybe want to or probably should? From graduating college to basically, since I've known you, you went from graduating college to digital nomading to joining me on not one but two wild journeys in entrepreneurship, and now founding senior full stack software engineer at a growing innovation studio. And I'm curious, anything along those lines of closing remarks or anything you've wanted to say or share about that experience.
I mean, from people that it's listening to me or that might listen to me or us in Latin America, I know that there's a lot of people in Latin America that knows the language, like English, right? It's very today it's just very basic. If you want to gain not only more money or a better salary, but also more experience, it's just a very natural thing because basically every tool that you use is in English. So, but this is also like part of an advice. Everyone that might listen to this and doesn't speak the language, I would say you're listening part of what I believe it's important for you to grow as a person and as a developer, whatever you're doing. So I would say some people don't notice how impactful learning a language, and I'm not saying a coding language or programming language. I'm saying the languages English or French or you name it. Um, but some people don't notice how important this is and how much it can make your mentality grow just because you consume different content, just because you can read things from other people and just open your mind, right? So it's
Can
not only
change the
about the money.
entire trajectory of your life, right?
That yeah, that for sure. You can I take this with pride, the very luck that I had, and also I know that there was some tragedy around this because all this happened after the pandemics, and pandemic was just a terrible thing. So I'm really lucky and proud of what I've done with this. But you can sometimes just because you want to get a certificated in AWS or Google Cloud or you name it, you think that is going to change your life, but if you were investing the same amount of money slash time on just learning the language, I would say that could even, if you're interested on the money only, that would do 2x, 3x, your current salary, maybe more. Because, we have so much talent on Latin America that don't get exposed so much just because they are too afraid of learning the language and how they sound in English. And it sucks. I get it, right? It sucks. The first time you think you don't understand it, but then you get used to it. And people is also like, it's not judging you because you have an accent or because you don't know how to say a word, right? If you're speaking Spanish, I would understand a little bit of what you say, right? Even if you don't know it 100%. So it's just the same. So for me, I would say publicly, just get to learn a new language, and whatever the language is, I'm not saying it has to be English, but that'll give you access to new books, give you access to new music. You get to enjoy different other things, right? Just think about you can go to other country, and that how amazing that is for you to order something on their native language. So I would push people to just learn the language, and if they're lucky and they commit to it, they can do it.
I love it. If people want to follow you or learn more about you, where can they find you online?
I have a web page that I'm working on. It's just bigpun.dev. They can follow me there. There's GitHub on that. I am planning on doing some open source, just like components in the future. Who knows I can be doing. But yeah, this is LinkedIn also. Cesar Bustamante, really, really chill person that they can contact even with cold emails, and if they want an advice or just to touch base and just connect.
Absolutely. I love it. Cesar, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Love it.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Of course, anyone who wants to reach out to Cesar, you can find him on LinkedIn, his GitHub, or his personal web dev page. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.